Hello, hello, hello once again. It's Chet. Welcome to another episode of the Dark Art Society podcast. Today we have an interview with painter Brad Gray, who is really awesome. In a word, I love his work. I think he brings something very interesting to the table in the dark art realm. He's definitely got his own voice, and I definitely dig what he's doing a lot with it. So we had a nice, easygoing chat. It was great meeting him in person finally, and hanging out and chatting with him. It's very one of those ones where you forget it's recording. So I hope you enjoy it. What am I doing? I'm working on the dystopia book. I'm doing some illustrations for that now. I'm filling in some blanks. That's coming along nicely. What else? That's pretty much it. That's all I'm focusing on right now. I got to get this thing done. I was supposed to have everything done this year. That was my plan, and there's only 2 months left in the year, so wish me luck. I'll be close anyway if I don't hit the deadline, but I think I'll be done with the book this year. At least what I'm my part in the book. That's the plan. What the hell was that? Oh, my phone. I got to turn that off. Anyway, yeah, so not a ton of exciting stuff going on with me other than making these book illustrations and getting that, continuing the progress of the book and moving everything forward. So, let's see. Let's go to new subscribers here. New Patreon subscribers. If you want to join, it's only $1 a month. And it's at patreon.com/darkartsociety. And you can make it happen. If you listen to the podcast and you can afford $1 a month, even for 1 month, and then you could delete your pledge if you want, if you don't think it's worth it. But you get the podcast a day early. And you get entrance into the secret Facebook group and the website that we're building up all the time. It's a good deal. $12 a year. Anyway, here's the new subscribers this week. We had some new subscribers. So it starts off with Kevin McGinnis. Thank you so much. Let's see. Wiseman upped his pledge. Thank you for doing that. Langley West. Wow, with a generous donation or subscription, whatever you want to call it. Thank you, Langley. That's awesome. Amanda Williams, who just sent me a lovely note about the Dark Art Society. Thank you, Amanda. Wait a minute. Oh, Kevin McGinnis again. Upped his pledge. Okay. Thanks for that. And Megan Buccere, Buccere. I'm sorry, Megan, if I'm mispronouncing your name, but thank you for the pledge. Subscription. It's not really a pledge. It's more subscription. Donation. I don't know what to call it, but thank you for supporting. Thank you for your support. How about that? Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I got to get back to this book. I'm doing some pencil drawings and pen and ink drawings for it, so I'm going to keep this short and get back to work, but I just wanted to do the intro here and talk about the new subscribers and talk about Brad being on the podcast. It's a good one. It's really interesting. Talk about an interesting life. This dude's lived all over the world. It's kind of insane. Anyway, check it out. I hope you like it. And thanks for listening. Hey, Brad. How are you doing?
All right, Chet. It's nice to be here.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm a huge fan, as you know, because I just told you. Very inspired by your work.
Thanks, mate.
Very inspired. You're one of those guys one of those artists that makes me just want to go paint. I was looking at your stuff before we got on. I was like,
No.
I don't want to do this interview. I want to go to the studio and paint now. Just kidding. But no, you know what I'm saying. It's inspiring to me.
That's always the biggest source of inspiration, I find, seeing other art, and it picks you up to want to go and do just that, really.
Absolutely.
So,
every time I go to a show, if it's a good show, an art show, I just immediately want to leave and go paint. That's how it usually works for me.
Yeah.
The show.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in Ireland. Is this the first interview we've done from Ireland?
Yeah, we've been here 5 years now.
Oh, okay.
We moved here from China.
From China?
Yep.
Where in China?
So we've pretty much kind of been moving around for the last 20 years.
Where?
My wife was a teacher, an art teacher, so she tended to get the jobs, and then I'd follow along. Occasionally, like in China, Swatch, the watch company, they took me over there. So I was there already. She was then looking, got offered a job in the middle of China, and we hooked up afterwards. So we were only there for 2 years because the pollution was really bad. And with the 3 kids, we thought, better go somewhere else. So we could have gone back to South Africa, which we were familiar with. Mm-hmm. But at that point, we were already used to that sort of way of life, which was really nice, but we fancied a change. Because the whole reason why we went to China in the first place was to have a bit of a new direction. So when we finished China, we came back here because my wife's Irish, and we ended up living with her uncle, who's 91.
Oh, wow.
And we were looking after him, so it's a mutual kind of benefit. But he's now in an old people's home, too old, frail, got dementia, started getting a bit aggressive, and it was quite difficult looking.
Yeah, that's right.
So we built this house, and we've been here 2 months in this house.
Wow. So what part of China were you in?
Initially, I was with Swatch in Shanghai.
Okay.
And it was a beautiful 5-star hotel that was on the Bund, which is right on the riverfront. And you look over what we call Pudong, which is the skyline, the modern skyline. Mm-hmm. The building we were in was the old opium sort of faculty, not faculty, what's the word? The Opium Commission. Mm-hmm. So the time of the Opium Wars, the British had this place to administer the whole thing. So it went back to sort of a good 150 years. Then a modern designer came in from Switzerland, designed it, gutted the building, really made it amazing inside. And then Swatch ran an art residency program. So 2 of the floors were given to artists on a roll-on, roll-off basis. And I was there for 6 months.
Wow.
So once that had concluded, by then my wife had been offered a job in Xi'an, which is in the middle of China. Mm-hmm. So I just relocated and met them all there, which was a bit of a come down, after having been in a beautiful 5-star hotel for 6 months.
Right.
And then, a big crash. Back to the realities of family life and all that,
Right.
But the pollution was terrible, but China was quite an amazing place to live. I know you went there, right? You were in Beijing?
Yeah, in Beijing for 4 months. My wife and I were working on a movie. We actually, in the middle of it during the Chinese New Year, we brought her mother out and our kids. So it was kind of cool. They got to see it stay up for a couple weeks. Yeah, it was amazing. It was pollution was god awful, but I'm from LA, so we're used to that sort of thing. Although the pollution in Beijing was insane, but the people were awesome. Really great people, really sweet, cool people.
I found a lot of people imagine it to be quite strict, with the communist oppression and all that, but it was very free, really. I mean, we had 2 electric scooters, which we whizzed the family around on.
Mm-hmm.
I'd often have the 3 kids with me, so we're all jammed in, and you could go down a one-way street with the beer in your hand if you wanted to.
Right, I know. Right.
It was really liberatory, and wherever you went, you were met with friendly people.
Right.
I liked it. If it wasn't for the pollution, I could have happily stayed there for another couple of years.
Really?
And they've got some amazing geoparks all over the country.
Yeah.
They're characterised by really unusual rock formations, which I've always loved.
Right.
So but here we are now in Ireland.
Yeah, that's cool. That's Ireland is a place that my wife and I always talk about going because I don't know. She just wants to go there, but I have Irish in me, so I've got Irish blood.
Right.
Yeah, so I definitely feel a connection to Ireland for sure.
So would you come back and trace your roots to?
I don't even know, man. My family is so. I mean, my mother was a McBride, so it was like we were Irish. I was told I was Irish, Scottish, Mexican, German, and French.
A good American.
Yeah, total mutt. But I've always my grandfather, my mom's dad was like the hard drinking Irishman. I mean, he wasn't from Ireland, but he was red hair and alcoholic and kind of a wild kind of a crazy dude, kind of a wild guy, funny, kind of stereotypical in a way, I think.
It's quieting down a lot, really. It's become very EU. Lots of regulations put in place. People follow the rules.
Right.
That sort of wild Irishman, I'd say there still exists. I mean, parts of Dublin are really rough, but my mates used to say whenever you see a dancing tramp in a bus stop in the UK, it's inevitably an Irishman. And they did have a reputation. But, there was even rules in the pubs saying no blacks, no dogs or Irish.
Right, yeah.
It's like it was all, that prejudice towards them. But, it's really nice and harmonious now. Lovely people here.
Yeah.
Really, really friendly. Nice place to live.
Oh, yeah. I'm
very green.
I'm envious of, I love that kind of weather too. Like rain and fog. I fucking love it. It's my favorite weather. So to be in California is like, it's, I like it cold and rainy and wet, man. I like it dreary. I like it. I love it. So I'm kind of envious of that. And also the fact that the art as an artist, they don't tax you or something.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
But it's an incredibly small art market. Really, really small.
Yeah, but you can sell overseas right?
Yeah. So in that way, it's a huge benefit. You get tax exempt status here once you've proved you're a full-time artist. Selling here is difficult. There's only 4.5 million people on the island, and it's the way that you go through the universities, the art schools, and then there's that industry supporting you afterwards. But if you're coming from the outside trying to drop into that, it's quite difficult.
Oh, I see.
And it's very nepotistic here. It's who you know.
Right.
And it's a small country, so there is that.
Yeah, right.
And what I've observed, it's like you've got your typical kind of art school push where it's really contemporary. maybe overly so. And then you've got your very traditional, doing horse racing scenes and the landscape and that sort of thing. But there's not a lot of play in between.
Mm. Right.
I mean, I haven't really tapped into any dark art here.
Yeah, that surprises me.
Yeah, they did have a dark art festival, but it was really in its infancy.
What about that Wow X Wow? Wow, I think it's called. That dude's in Ireland, right?
Yeah. No, that's Tim McLean. He's up in Inverness.
Where's that?
Up in Scotland.
Oh, it's Scotland. Oh, Scotland. Okay. Oh, I didn't realize. Yeah. I thought he was in Ireland for some reason. Scotland, no, Ireland, it's the same thing to all us dumb Americans. Just kidding. No, that's cool though.
You've got this the Royal Hibernian Academy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of the oldest elitist clubs in the country. I think they've got 30 permanent members, and for a new member to come in, someone has to die.
Wow. That's harsh.
And it's hard. But they've got this amazing building in Dublin that goes back to, I think, about 1880.
Wow.
And they tend to throw very contemporary shows. Once a year, they open it to the whole country where you can enter a piece. You don't have to be an artist. And then you're selected. They curate the show, and there's about 400 pieces hanging. It's like the biggest art event in the country. But there's that whole contemporary push, which I don't really get into or really resonate with, to be honest.
Yeah, this is the whole Europe. The whole of Europe really is not from the interviews I've done. Dark art is just, it's not happening in Europe. It's just there's not really a scene there, which is so weird to me.
Yeah, I've thought about that, and if you think of the history that Europe has with the mythology and the writers that have tapped into that dark thing, you know, like there's this old guy that we were looking after, Elaine's uncle, my wife's uncle. There's a guy that goes there called Mick. And he's in his 70s, and he's been looking after the property for the last 30, 40 years. He came from a really, really poor background, 9 kids. His father died when he was about 40, so his mum had to bring 9 kids up.
Oh, my God.
And one pair of shoes, and they were like big clodhoppers with steel cleats on the bottom, so you'd hear him coming. And he said the village itself, once you left the village, there were no street lamps anywhere. So you'd be walking out into the darkness. And he said the mythology and the ideas and the fertile imaginations would start to take over. So he says, for instance, he was walking out and he'd heard that there was a banshee out in the bog. And you'd hear this wailing coming across the misty bog at night. And it was freaking all the locals out, and this was going on for 3 or 4 nights. And it turned out it was a calf, a baby cow, that was trapped under this bridge by a piece of metal tube. So it was amplifying sound, and it was calling. But everyone just assumed it was a banshee.
Right. So you'd think these people would be into dark art.
Yeah, there's the old history, isn't there?
Yeah.
But for some reason, it's not. There was another story. I was down in Galway, and the river that goes out into the bay there, when the pesky British came over and colonised the place, they claimed the rights to the river, the fishing rights. So Lord Ashton, I think, was back in the UK, had the rights to the river. So the rebellious locals, which fair enough, it wasn't on that they would take their fish. So they would fish under the bridge where they were no longer seen, and they could get away with doing what they were doing. But they'd go missing every now and then. because it was a really strong river, and then they'd be washed out to sea. But the rumours got around that there was a lobster man with these big claws that would come up and pull them under.
That's so cool. That's great.
Yeah. But it's like, yeah, so the imaginations were there, and you'd think that would then fuel a nice dark art scene, wouldn't you?
You'd think, yeah. But I mean, there's such a history of ghost stories and mythology. I mean, it's like it's. I think my mother's mother, my grandmother, who was married to Jack McBride, the Irishman. She was English, I think. Actually, I think she was English, and there was always on my mother's side, all her and her sisters were always like into ghosts and the supernatural, and it just seems like, I don't know, there's a connection there there's a rich history of ghost stories and mythologies with monsters and spirits and stuff. It's like, it's just, I don't know, maybe it's too real over there. so the paintings are freak people out or something. I mean, that's what Dos Diablos, Jorge, that's what he's saying in Mexico. Again, in Mexico, you'd think that dark art would be huge because there's the Day of the Dead and there's a lot of strife there and there's a lot of Catholicism there, and it's like, it seems like a lot of things that would, to me, I would think that would kind of be a breeding ground for it. But he says it's the opposite. It's like people are so religious that it freaks them out. So it's like there's nothing there.
Because it, in a way, it's like we were in South Africa before, and I was always surprised there was no real dark art over there. And I said, well, there's enough darkness already, with issues and things like that. So they'd rather not tap into that.
Yeah, maybe that's
rather escape.
Right. Yeah, maybe that's the case. That's interesting. I mean, look. Well, sorry. Carry on. No, I was just gonna say I went to South Africa too for like 3 weeks. I worked in Johannesburg.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a trip.
Yeah. And you saw how everyone lived with the electric fences.
Yeah. This was in the late 90s, I think it was.
Right.
Yeah, it was a trip, man. It was a trip. It reminded me of the early 70s to me, like in where I grew up, like just the way the shops and stuff were. It seemed really like it reminded me kind of my childhood in a weird way, just the way the stores looked, and there wasn't like a ton of people everywhere, at least where I went, it was a trip. I don't know. We've often commented on that as well, because we were in Saudi Arabia for a while, and then one of the trips from there to South Africa to stay with my wife's uncle. He was an Irishman that was living in Joburg, and we toured around. We hitchhiked all along the bottom, along the coast, and actually quite liked the place. Not all of it, but once you got out of the cities, it was pretty crime-free. And we ended up settling down there. So we stayed with Jim in Joburg for 4 months. Got used to that whole locking yourself in at night, electric fences, etc. It was pretty rough, You did hear like the guy up the road. He was bumped off one night while we were there. Someone had a break in, and I suppose we went to numerous parties with mainly white people, and I kind of got sick of the stories that it was always crime this and crime that, and you don't go down there because it's dangerous and it's black. Right.
Then I met this Polish artist, and he took me down there, and we walked around, and it seemed a great vibe. Real sort of beating heart of Joburg,
Right.
Really alive. And I thought, well, I'll go down again next time around there. And I went down to take some pictures. But on my own, it felt very different. And I don't know if I was paranoid, but I was walking down this little alley, and before I knew it, I was being strangled.
Oh my God.
And a guy had come up behind me, a big guy, I didn't see him, and he picked me up, put his bony part of his arm across my throat and lifted me up, while another guy ran towards me. He was frisking me, and the other guy, there's three of them, had a blade to my sternum.
Oh my God.
And I remember looking right into this guy's eyes, because you kind of imagine, if you're ever going to get mugged, you kick the hell out of them and do kung fu moves.
Right.
It just doesn't work. And I was there, and I could feel all the bones in my neck crunching, and I went limp. My arms were like flailing.
Oh my God.
And this guy just went, shut up. And he sort of frisked me. They took my money, it wasn't much. And then I blacked out because they blocked the oxygen to my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I hit the deck. I don't know how long I was there. And I woke up with grit and blood sort of around my eye, and I was concussed. I must have hit the deck pretty hard. And I was staring into this large wheel of a truck. So where I had gone down, there was buildings on one side, and then a big long trailer truck parked this side. So it was a perfect ambush.
Right.
And I was really dazed and confused, and I looked at this tire, and I thought I was waking up in the morning, and I said, that's not Elaine. I was thinking that she doesn't look like Elaine. Thinking it was my wife. And then I kind of realized where I was, and I sort of rubbed my face. This grit was in my skin, and I looked around and realized what had happened. And there was just such a feeling of nonplussed people. Like people that saw it happen didn't do a thing.
Right.
And that was my warning, really, that, it can be a dangerous place. I mean, I wasn't stabbed. I just had a bit of money nicked.
Yeah, that's scary. Yeah,
it wasn't.
Yeah, they were telling us, I remember when we were there, they were telling us, horror stories, of course, and how they had, like, cars that had flames that came out the bottom because there were so many carjackings, like out at the side, or crazy shit.
Yeah.
Crazy shit. Yeah, it was.
I mean, after a certain time, you don't.
Right. Yeah. It was a fucked up place. But again, it's so weird. It's just like with China. It's like the people are just people wherever you go. I think it sounds like you've traveled everywhere, and I've traveled to a lot of places, and it's always been everywhere I've been. I've been to Italy, I've been to China, I've been to Berlin, I've been to London. And it's like, on the ground level, generally, most people are just cool. I haven't been to a place where everyone was a bunch of assholes, except one time when I was the only people in China that were the assholes were the Americans. There was like the only person that gave me shit because I had like a nose ring at the time, a septum piercing, and I had, I think, maybe, long hair and the beard and everything, and half of my head was shaved or something. And the only person that gave me shit was another American in a convenience store, like really rude. I walked by and he said, just what the world needs, like under his breath, but he said it really loud. He was just total asshole. And it was just kind of ironic. So, but people are cool here too. It's like regular people. Yeah. Oh, I think are you there? I lost you for a second. Okay, you're good. Yeah, people are people, though, I think.
Yeah. No, I think what I want to say as well that we lived in South Africa for 10 years and had an amazing time.
Right.
I wouldn't want to live in Joburg.
Yeah.
Got friends that live there, but we were right down the south, and it was really chilled, really peaceful, wonderful people, and you know, you hear a lot of the negative coming out of South Africa all the time, but it was an amazing place to live. You know, we had a family there, and
Yeah.
we really, really enjoyed it. So we bought an old farmhouse down in the south and renovated it for 2 years. And it was wonderful. You know, you'd walk around barefoot, and we were in a national park, so the forest behind us just bled into the mountains, and then from there you'd have all sorts of things coming out: caracals, bushbuck, honey badgers.
Amazing.
And they'd all just come wandering into your garden.
So cool.
And it was really, really wonderful. You know, you'd sit there and, like, I'd have a cup of tea, because we built a studio at the bottom of the garden, and, you know, you finish painting for a bit, sit out the back, and just listen to all the sounds of the forest all around you, and how you kind of tuned into it, and noticing things that, like, for instance, one day I was having a cup of tea, and the guinea fowl come walking through the garden, and they're, you know what they are? They're black birds with the white dots. They're like chickens, but they're wild. They have blue heads, and they have very loud kind of clucking sounds. The sound is amplified by 3. And they come through your garden, they peck away, and they get rid of all the bugs and things like that. Well, they're always kind of around, and if they see a snake, they freak out, really freak out. And one time we had our hose pipe going through the long grass, and they thought it was a snake, and they really freaked out of that. But one day I was sat there just drinking my tea, and they came trotting through, and they stopped, and probably a gaggle of maybe 15, and one of them, the big one, walked off on its own, went underneath this lemon tree we had, and it started scraping a little bulb patch through the leaves. It sat there, keeled over on its side, kicked its legs twice like that, and died.
Oh my God.
And I was really amazed. And the other ones just observed it. It's like they knew it was going to die.
What a
it went
trip.
off and died.
Wow.
And I walked up to it, put my hand on it. It was still warm. It was still. And I thought, wow, that's really quite amazing.
It is.
To observe it as well.
Wow.
And I put it in the compost heap and checked back 6 weeks, and it's gone.
Oh, wow.
Just the heat, it just, yeah.
Got eaten?
That whole sort of cycle of life and death was quite amazing to see. You know?
Well, dogs will do that too. Dogs will, when they're dying. Sometimes our dog didn't do that when he was dying, but they'll go and just find a weird place to, like, hide while they're dying. It's weird. Like under the house, they'll go under the house sometimes and just die. It's like they know, and it's strange. Life is strange.
That kind of ties in. There was we were having a renovation done on the end of the house, so all the things in our bedroom we had to cram into the hallway. So the hallway was choked with cupboards and things like that. And we were sleeping in the lounge, and the door to the bedroom was wide open to the open air for about 2 months. And about 2:00 in the morning, something came into the house and started running up the corridor and bashing into things.
Oh my God.
And I jumped up and I grabbed something. I was naked. I didn't know what it was. My heart was like hammering away. And I was trying to do the man thing, and Elaine was like, what is it? What is it? And I was like, there's something coming out, and she could hear it. And it's like bashing away. And I sort of advanced, like peeked my head around, couldn't see a thing. And as I advanced in, then something went running up the corridor and out the door. And I don't know what it was, but it was pretty big.
Wow.
And then in the morning, we kind of just carried on with our day, and I went to put some washing in. I'd already had some washing in the washing machine, and then I went to put it on. So I put it on, went on the spin, washed the clothes, and then a couple of hours later I went to get it out and hang it. And as I put my hand in, something scratched me right up the arm, and it was a cat.
A what? A cat?
A cat. cat, yeah. So it was the next door neighbour's cat. So thinking back to what had happened, the cat was chased into our house by something. It could have been a caracal, which are like the lynx with the long pointy ears.
Uh-huh.
Chased the cat. The cat ran into the washing machine where we had the washing all ready to go for the morning. And then I came in, closed the door on it, put the spin in the wash.
Oh, my God.
And killed the cat.
Oh.
And it was in rigor mortis. The legs are out like that.
Oh, my
and I
God.
put my hand in it.
Wow.
So I pulled out this really heavy cat because obviously it's full of water.
Wow.
It was stiff as a board. And I had to go and apologise to the neighbour.
Yeah, well, that's unusual circumstances. I mean, what are you going to do? It's not like you could have helped that one.
Yeah.
I better check. I'm going to check my washer every time I wash my clothes to make sure some random cat's not in there. Okay, I want to... yeah, you sounds like you've had a really interesting life. I want to hear about you, from your life as an artist. Like, how long have you been creating work? When did you start? Were you an art kid? What kind of things were you into and all that business?
Yeah, I know you asked that question. Are you an art kid? Are you an art kid? Well, I thought you'd probably ask me that.
Yeah.
I was a climbing kid and an art kid. So,
okay.
And I was trying to think back to when I first started drawing, because I grew up in Germany.
In where?
My dad was in Germany.
Oh, where in Germany?
It was where the Pied Piper fame came from.
Oh, really?
Pied Piper?
Yeah.
Yeah. He kind of took all the rats away, then didn't pay him, so then he came all the kids away.
Yeah.
So we lived there for 5 years, and we were kind of in these big tower blocks, and about 3 miles away there was a really old Gothic castle. We called Dracula's Castle, and we used to go there with my parents. We'd do Sunday walks and so on, and then as we got familiar with it, they allowed us to go there on our own. So I'd go down there with my mates, and there was a couple of lakes. We could catch frogs and lizards and newts and things like that.
Sounds amazing.
And it was, but we were always frightened about Dracula.
That's part of the fun, though.
Dead.
That's part of the fun.
Yeah. The curtains were always closed. They had these huge, big, tall Gothic windows. And one day the curtain was open and we peered in, and it just looked amazing,
Right.
I was wondering, maybe that's sort of part of what fueled to do what I do,
right.
a little bit. But then there was also this guy, because we were, we're in this big estate, army kids were always coming and going, recycling and moving on. And this one lad turned up, and he was quite mad. He had this massive neck, really thick neck. He was really strong. He was like 3 years older than myself at the time, really strong. And he had no hair on his arms. And the reason why I know, because he was very aggressive, and he would always get me in a headlock, right? And this guy had this really thick neck, so he looked like a cross between a minotaur and a pug, because his eyes bulged out of his head, and one was blind, and one looked this way.
Oh my God! And what a character!
Really aggressive, and he always had like this green snot hanging out his nose.
Holy shit!
And whenever he'd get you in a headlock, you'd be aware of this snot dangling above your head.
Oh my God!
Anyway, we nearly actually killed him. We got involved in water bombs, those little water bombs and the balloons.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived on the 8th floor, and we were throwing them out the window, seeing them splat below.
Yeah, everybody.
And then we ran out of balloons. So we started filling carrier bags up and throwing them out, and they started booming.
What were they? What?
Like shopping bags.
Oh, shopping. Oh, okay, yeah, shopping bags.
Yeah. So plastic bags would fill with water, and then we ran out of them, and then we found a thick black plastic bin liner, a big one.
Oh, like a trash bag,
And we weren't
garbage
really,
bag.
yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
I was only 9 or 10 years old. So me and my mate Ian, we filled it about halfway full.
That's
so it must
heavy,
have been
man.
about 20 kilos.
How did you lift it up? How did you carry it?
Yeah, I know. We kind of got it. And the window's up high, right? So we pushed it up and got it. So it was almost like saddlebags would be over the horse, you know. So one side had a load of water, and this side we got it up, and then we had to get up on the window. I got up, and then as Ian got up, he must have hit it with his elbow or something, and it toppled out the window. And toppled. So we both peered out just as this kid, the pug Minotaur guy, is walking into the building, and it missed him by about 75 centimeters.
Oh my God!
Just dropped right in front of him.
Oh my God!
Boom! It knocked him off his feet. He fell backwards, soaked to the skin. And as he was on his back, he looked up and saw us too.
Perfect. So was he better after that or worse?
Oh yeah, he hunted us forever.
Oh my God, that's
but I
awful.
don't know. I think back to his face and his aggression, and I think that must have filtered out into some of my work there. You know?
Yeah, those things are powerful experiences when you're a kid.
You've talked about like Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and The Howling.
Yeah.
So those films were coming out. They were on the circuit with all the soldiers. So they were pirate copying them, and then we could get to see them when parents were out. And I think seeing a lot of those films was very influential as well.
So you were into horror movies as well?
Not per se, but they were particularly good.
Right.
They had something about them. I don't know if it's nostalgia or... Yeah, I mean, Spit in My Grave we watched. And then there was other ones.
I've still
like
never
The
seen
Warriors.
that one.
Do you remember that?
Which one?
No? The Warriors?
Oh, yeah, The Warriors is great.
Yeah.
That's a classic.
Yeah, and The Wanderers. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I don't really watch horror films now.
Yeah.
They don't seem to do much for me.
Yeah.
I like the visual.
Yeah, there's hard to find. There's not as, we'll sound like the old guys saying it, but there's not a lot of great horror movies nowadays. So, it's kind of rare to find. Once in a while a good one will come out, but yeah, I'm with you there. It's not like I seek them out anymore because there's just so much trash. It's like, mostly trash.
Yeah.
But
so,
well, I guess every I'm sorry. I was going to just say, like, that not every, but most boys, probably, adolescent boys, they're going to be interested in horror movies to some degree, just for the, either the shock factor or, it's exciting and counterculture a little bit,
Yeah. What I did find as well, the first album I bought was War of the Worlds, and I used to love listening to that in my room, darkened room, or we'd be drawing from 2000 AD, that comic, copying what we could see, and listening to War of the Worlds.
So were you into sci-fi, science fiction?
No, not really. I was never a Star Wars kid. I would. No, I mean, I watched Battlestar Galactica. No, I wouldn't say that, really. I was out climbing and playing.
Yeah, so you
really.
Sounds like maybe you weren't as nerdy as a lot of us. Because you kind of got to be a nerd, kind of nerdy to be into like horror and sci-fi, really hardcore. And I was definitely nerdy. But that's It's like my dad was the same way. He was a football player, like a sports guy, but he was also an artist, so he wasn't wasn't really, he was kind of nerdy though, actually, now that I think about it, but not as much as like a super geeky horror fan. So that's interesting. So you're I mean, I was kind of like I used to like love to climb, and I used to climb on my roof all the time. I would climb trees. I would go hiking on my own and stuff too. So I was kind of into that as well. But I think, it's kind of a boy thing, a lot, for a lot of kids, at least back then.
But yeah, I mean, you had the nice climate. I suppose you could be off all day. We usually found if it's and with rain, then it would bring us inside.
Right. Yeah. No.
We'd do the draw.
I was just telling my granddaughter, my granddaughters, how when I was her age, when I was 10, because she just turned 10, I was telling her this was like 1977. I must have been 10. We got on our bikes one day, no helmets. Got on. My mom didn't know where we were going, and we drove I have to look on the map, but it must have been 20 miles or something. We drove all the way, rode our bikes all the way across town, all by ourselves, and we were gone all day, and we got back right before dark, and it's just it's such a different world today. I wouldn't let my granddaughter do it. It's just a different place. It was a lot less people back then, and I don't know. The world seemed less scary in a way.
A lot less traffic, I suppose.
Yeah, when I was 6 years old, I used to walk on my own. 6 years old, I'd go walk probably a mile away, cross this major street, and go to the toy store and get a monster model, buy a monster model for $2, and then bring it back home and build it all on my own. And it's just now it's traffic and people and chaos. It's crazy.
I know. We were in LA, I think about maybe 15 years ago, and I remember the traffic was roads that were 6 lanes wide.
It's hell. It's pure hell. That's why I never leave my house.
So that wasn't the road you were crossing.
No, it wasn't a freeway like that. It was more just like a major street. But it's it was a 2 lanes going each way. But it was the main street of San Pedro, one of the main streets. So, but anyway, yeah, it's just so weird to think about back then. It's crazy.
Yeah. Come more nannied, I suppose, haven't we?
I mean, part of it might be because there's more information, so it seems more dangerous. Maybe it was more dangerous back then, but we didn't know it because there wasn't the internet to tell you about all the stories and kidnappings. But it also, there's way more people now. So it's going to happen more often because there's just more people and more crazy people.
But that's the thing. It's if you watch the news, you just think the world is a really scary place.
Right.
And so often when you go off out into the big wide world, it's not so much.
I know.
Usually.
Right.
There's always events, but like you say, most people are cool.
Yep.
And whether their colour, their religion, they just want the same things.
Exactly.
They want to bring their families up with happiness, a roof over their head.
Yep.
And they're more than happy. If you come to their country, they will open their doors for you.
Oh, yeah. Man, in China, we befriended a family. They didn't speak English at all. We were trying to learn Chinese. I still remember a few words, but not too much. But they invited us into their home. It's this old. Did you hear me tell this story before? Have I told this story on the podcast? We became. We just got along. They were cool. It was weird because there was this huge language barrier, and we did have a translator, but we just liked each other. So they invited us over to their house, us and the whole crew, the makeup effects crew, 10 people in this old. I mean, it was so old. This little house they lived in. It was, it was all these, just a bunch of little kind of, I don't even know how to describe it. They were hundreds of years old, I'm sure, at least. There were these really old houses, tiny little houses, and we all crammed in there. And they made the crew, the American effects crew, like a 10-course meal in this little tiny kitchen. And they knew I was vegetarian, so they made all vegetarian stuff for me, and it was the best Chinese vegetarian food I've ever had in my entire life. It was so good. They just treated us like we were, kings. They were so nice to us. They didn't have to do that. It was so cool. So cool. Really amazing.
And those sort of things, those experiences you do come across regularly when you travel. We went down to Yemen.
Wow.
Unfortunately, it's all a state of war and that. But the British consulate advised that we didn't go because there'd been quite a few kidnappings and so on. But with research, we saw that the kidnappings were often very, kindly done. Because of the Bedouin hospitality.
Oh, weird.
You and all that,
Do you mind if I kidnap you for a bit?
Yeah. It's just like, that's what we're going to do. You're just a political tool, so we can get what we want and we'll treat you well. And normally the deaths occurred when the government blundered in and tried to release them.
Oh my God.
So, we went down there twice. In fact, the first time we drove down because we were working in Saudi, and it was an amazing experience. Very proud people. They all carry a Kalashnikov. They've all got these curved daggers called a jambir.
Wow.
On their belt, but they'd never kill anyone with that.
Right.
It's just a bit of a pride thing. And we went right over to the east side of the country through the desert. But we did go through an area where there were lots of warlords. So we had an escort take us through. And every 100 kilometers, we'd have to pay these guys with GAT, which is this leaf they do.
You're brave. And, you're brave.
we just sort of blundered into it, really, because we got to this town called Marib, and it's famous for Queen Sheba origins. Mm-hmm. But there's not a lot there. It's just it's right on the cusp of the Rub al Khali, which is a massive desert, and there's nothing, just sand drifting. And we got to this kind of windswept outpost where loads of soldiers were just milling around. And these two soldiers come up and told us to get out of the car and gestured for us to follow them. And we walked up to the biggest building in the area. And it was packed full of soldiers. But they weren't dressed like normal soldiers. They all wear skirts, but with the camouflage top and then the Kalashnikov and flip-flops.
Wow.
And we kind of had to go up to the top floor, this 3-story building, and all the way up each side of the stairway were soldiers. Like on each step there was a soldier each side. So you're going through all these people, just me and Elaine, and we come to this big open room with a very large desk. And the top brass were sat at the desk, the generals and so on, the 4 of them. And around the room, it was all lined with soldiers. And we didn't know what we were there for. We thought maybe we don't have the right paperwork, or maybe they're going to arrest us. We didn't know. So we walked up to the desk. They gestured for us to sit in front of the main dude. And he whispered to the guy next to him, who disappeared. And we just sat there in silence with about 100 people, right, all in this room, and we're feeling quite awkward. And then this guy comes running back after 5 minutes with 2 ice-cold Cokes.
Wow.
And he put them in front of us, and that was like the real icebreaker. It was like, this was a gesture of hospitality, and okay, it's friendly now.
Amazing.
We didn't know at that point. 2 Cokes it was symbolised by. And in the end, this guy starts speaking to us. He says, look, you're going to go through a very dangerous area. There's lots of warlords, and there's been kidnappings and ambushes and things like that. So I'm going to give you an armed escort for the next 1,300 kilometers.
Wow.
Right to the other side of the desert. And he says, the first part is very dangerous, which is why there's loads of soldiers here. So I'm going to give you it's like a Land Cruiser with this big cannon on the top, and then two cop cars, and then in our car we had two soldiers with guns, right?
Wow.
And I had to drive fast, and once we got to about 100 kilometers, we'd exchange the two guys in the car, and then the rest of them peeled back, and then we did the rest of it with usually one guy in the car. So we kind of went all the way around. And we got right over to the other side, stayed in this beautiful old palace in this natural spring, swimming with all these little frogs. So they were doing the breaststroke next to us under the stars. And it was really amazing, like something out of Lawrence of Arabia or something. And then we kind of got stuck through paperwork issues. And eventually we were released and we had to go along the southern coast. And one of these amazing things to witness, but we got down to this town that I think had the Italians there for a while. Mm-hmm. Possibly someone was saying this. And they'd painted all the buildings in lovely pastel colours. So you had all these buildings going up the cliffs in beautiful old crumbling pastel colours that had been bleached by the sun. And a tanker, a massive big ocean-going tanker, had crashed into the town.
Wow.
So you had all these, like, you can visualise that, like this really dry, dusty, flowery-coloured town with this big black leviathan that had come out of the sea and just crashed into it a big wave. And the people were slowly taking bits off it, salvaging bits that they could, but the hulk of it was like this immense thing towering right up there in this little tiny town. Just one of those things you chance upon, you know?
Right, amazing.
But yeah, you could say, okay, well, it's dangerous. The British consulate says don't go there. And then you don't have these amazing experiences.
That's true. Yeah, it's true. You're still brave though. but so okay. But I want to get back to your. I want to hear your art story. How you became, because so many people who listen to the show are artists or aspiring artists, and so it's always interesting to hear how people's paths, how people took these paths to become fine artists. Because whether we're rolling in dough or not, we're still living kind of this dream that most people would love to live, which is where you get to create artwork for your main source for your living. So, what was the path that got you there? How did you get to be an independent fine artist?
Yeah, I've listened to like quite a few of your podcasts now, and there's some guests that have had a lot of industry experience. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say I have. Although I've been painting pretty much since I was 16, on and off,
That's
so initially, I joined the Marines. I wanted to be an illustrator for the Royal Marines. My dad was in the army, and I was quite interested in the sort of adventure side and seeing a bit of the world. Mm-hmm. I liked a bit of a challenge, so I thought I'll try and do the commando course, and I did. Passed.
How was that?
And then it was bloody tough.
I bet. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it was really tough. Basically, it's 30 weeks long, the course, and the first 15 weeks you're training to become a Marine, and then the last 15 weeks you do the commando phase, which is more sneaky operations, sort of things. The last 2 weeks is the commando tests, and you don't stop. So even when you're in the dinner queue, you have to run on the spot. You have this special little hat called the cap comforter, and once you wear that, you don't stop running. And the whole course finishes with a 30-mile march, which you have to do in 8 hours. And it's like you have to map read and with a weapon and your webbing, and you have to run over the Dartmoor. And then you do a 7-day exercise for which you cover 200 miles by foot mainly. And then you do an attack on a fort. And if you do all that and you pass.
Wow.
So it was tough, yeah. And 15 of us passed it out of 55. And then you have injured people coming into your troop, so about 80 people, so 15.
Wow.
But then you feel like you're at the top of the tree, and then you go to your fighting unit, and you're right at the bottom again.
Oh, wow.
And, you get bullied. I remember me and this other guy from another troop, we were the new guys, and one night they grabbed us, and we had to have a naked pillow fight against each other.
Oh, my God.
And it wasn't just that, they shaved us, like ready for battle, shaved my balls.
Oh, my God.
They covered me in like black indelible marking pen.
Holy shit.
And then I had to beat the hell out of the other guy with all this crowd of like ravenous blokes shouting.
That sounds like a nightmare, man. Sounds like hell.
It was. And
doesn't sound fun at all.
So yeah, that wasn't pleasant. But I got my own back on them because I was a good runner, and the lieutenant was a really nice guy. He made me the pace man one day, and the older guys always took pride in their fitness, and he made me the pace guy, and we had to do a 9-mile run. So I picked up the pace. I just took it in my stride. I was getting faster and faster, and they couldn't keep up. And they all ended up straggling behind. And they knew what they were doing, but their pride, the fact they couldn't keep up,
right?
More, so
that's cool.
Anyway, so I joined, and then the illustration branch was going to disband. So I did all that, and I thought, well, okay, I'm not sure what to do. I was home on leave, and I bumped into an old friend, and he said, "Oh, Brad, I'm going off to art school." And I said, "Oh, whereabouts?" He said, "Oh, Bristol. It's technical illustration. That's the course he's doing." And I said, "Oh, well, I'm going to look into that." So I did, and the next minute I was on that course. So I left the Marines because I was coming up to 18, and it kind of tied in quite well. The course was pretty boring because it was technical illustration,
right?
No expression whatsoever,
right?
It was all about how to construct and draw things in meticulous detail. But it gave me the BTEC qualification to then go on and do pure illustration. And I got into Falmouth School of Art, which is down in Cornwall, down in the southwest of England. And I'd done a painting because there was a friend of mine, Matthew Healy, who was really fantastic, really gifted painter. And he got me into painting with oils at 16. So I was dabbling with them alongside my technical illustration, and starting to kind of get the idea of what oils were about. And one of the paintings I did was me with my fingers in my friend's head, right? So into his eye sockets. And when I went down for my interview, they were all keen on the work. They thought I thought I was in, right? And then they saw that painting, and it also went quiet. And they said, "Okay, all right, well, thank you, Brad. We'll be in touch." And then about 10 days later, the head of the faculty called my mum, and they wanted to understand my character and why I would paint something like that. He says, because we're down in Cornwall, it's quite a remote place, and the social community has to work together, and we wonder if Brad would fit into that social climate if he's painting disturbing scenes like that. So my mum vouched for me and said, "No, he's a wonderful boy." And I got in.
Wow.
Got in, and it was a really good course. In a nice big art school down there in Cornwall, which was lovely. And at the end of it, you go up to London and you present your portfolio, because this was before internet.
Right.
and you take it into various agencies and things like that. And I ended up getting taken on by the art market in Covent Garden. And he was like an illustration agency that had about 30 guys on his books. And it was pretty much sort of on and off. I'd get nice commissions and then nothing,
Right.
for a while. I did a really big billboard for British Telecom. That was wonderful. Senior work blown up like 15 meters all over the country.
That's cool.
And it paid really well.
What was the illustration?
It wasn't very exciting. It was just a big, those handheld phones where you dial.
Mm-hmm.
So in the dial was a world, and it was kind of in space. It was pretty much the art director said, "We want this image in your style."
And it was all
2.5 days.
It was all painted.
Painted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And sort of at the time, I think I got £3,000 for 2.5 days' work, and that was over 20 odd years ago. So
Nice.
it's good money.
That is good money.
And then I'd be earning nothing for a while, so I was kind of on and off the dole. And then my wife got offered a job in Saudi Arabia, so we went over there, and I kind of no longer did the illustration, but worked on my own work while I was there. Bigger canvases, kind of deserty colours, looking at sort of montage type work. Is it
similar to your style now, what you were doing then, or were you kind of developing that style that you're doing now?
No, I was just playing with oils and layering and almost like montages of various elements thrown together.
Okay.
And I was really inspired by the landscape. We'd go off camping a lot into the desert, and that would all come back into the art. Then I started using my mind a bit more. And then I was teaching a Saudi princess over there.
Oh, really?
At her palace.
That must have been a trip.
Yeah, it was basically I had to get a portfolio of work together for her to go to America, and she didn't have a clue. So I had to show her how to paint and how to draw and all this.
Did she have any natural ability?
No.
Oh my God!
But it was kind of sad. Really. It was kind of sad because she was this beautiful girl. I mean, she was 21, and her father was going to send her to America, and then he just changed his mind one day. So I must have worked there for 3 months, teaching her, building this portfolio up, really going for it, and then just all shelved. Wow. I think he was just worried to allow his beautiful daughter out of his clutches. The Saudis are very controlling. Then we left Saudi with enough money to kind of buy a house in South Africa. And then we bought that house. I approached a gallery down there called Everard Reed, which is a really nice gallery, commercial. They've been going for 103 years. So very, very established. And quite tough to get in because a lot of people want to get in on their scene. And he took me on and he said, we'll see how the first 6 paintings go. And they all sold. And I started building a reputation with them. So that kind of allowed us to live in South Africa pretty much on what I was painting and selling. And then over time, there was a Jewish fraternity in Cape Town, businessmen, entrepreneurs and so on, that started getting wind of what I was doing, who resonated with what I was painting. So they'd come down on the way, because where we lived, it was halfway between Port Elizabeth and Cape Town in a lovely touristy area. So they'd go through, pull into my studio, see what I was painting, and then buy a few pieces. And that's when I started to explore more what I'm doing now. Really.
Wow.
But I could paint much bigger over there.
Right. It's hard harder to sell big paintings, though.
Over there, it was okay. I mean,
yeah, if you're going through a gallery too, I guess it's back then.
Yeah,
it's easier
a metre and a half was quite often. A metre and a half was the usual size, which now would be really big.
Yeah. Wow.
Because they've got a lot of big houses over there. They want the walls covered with big works.
Yeah. Interesting.
I kind of worked with Everard Reed for 10 years. But then when I went to China, it sort of severed things.
Yeah.
Because art's quite patriotic. Well, it was in South Africa. They tend to support South African artists. But the moment you leave, you're out of the vision, out of the view. It sort of severed things, really. And then from China, we went to here.
Wow.
Trying to rekindle things in things here.
So
it's a lot more to it.
How long have you been showing with Copro?
Well, that was you mentioned Dos Diablos earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So he started following me on Facebook, I think, a couple of years ago, and said, you must contact Chet, see if you can get into Copro. So I wrote to you, I think, a couple of times, and then I didn't hear anything back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I said to George, I said, I don't know. It must be a busy chat or whatever. I just didn't hear back. So then you did. I think you did write back. And
they slip by sometimes.
You showed.
I can't keep them all.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I know. And then I think you showed it to Gary, and then Gary contacted me. And the next one I was in the Dark Art show, the first one.
Right.
So that was only a year ago, wasn't it? Just over a year ago.
That's cool. Yeah, I didn't realize. I thought I've got, I don't really have any memory of doing any of that because I'm just like, I don't have a great memory to start with, and it's just like I'm, me, I'm always going and doing all this stuff, and I'm just barely hanging on by the seat of my pants. So I'm just like, trying to make things happen here, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, once it's over, it's like it's out of my head. But so I thought maybe you had shown there longer. But I know Gary's a huge fan of your work. He talks, Gary's he's not super expressive, He doesn't get excited about artists that much. He's very low key. He's cool, but he's just very low key kind of guy. But he's always been really excited about your work. He really, really loves it.
Thanks. It's nice to know. I know you. From what I gathered from listening to your podcast, you're juggling some balls, really, aren't you?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just it's expensive to live in LA. So it's I gotta keep making money. So it's it's not easy.
Yeah. But you've got the right scene over there.
Yeah, I know.
Which is quite far, really. Why is there a dark art scene in one of the sunniest places in the world?
I know, it's weird. It's totally weird. It's I don't know. It's maybe art critics in the future will figure it out. It's weird. It's I think there's a lot of different things that converge sort of in LA, which there's the entertainment industry, and that's kind of part of it, and the whole lowbrow scene kind of started on the West Coast, I believe, and it's kind of an extension of that, the pop surrealism thing. I don't know, man. I don't know, and I don't really. It doesn't really matter. It's more like,
matter, I suppose,
it's fun to think about. It's interesting. It's curious, but but
because it's like when Gary said, come into this, that I want to put you in this show, and then I saw it was the Dark Art Society show. I didn't really know much about dark art, to be honest. I mean, my work people have often seen and they'll say, oh, it's quite dark, and you've had the same sort of things, I'm sure.
Yep.
Don't you want to paint happier things? And,
Yep.
I never really saw it as that dark.
Right.
I mean, there's some people that do chopped up bodies and guts,
Right.
and it's not really quite what I want to do. But I suppose I wasn't really familiar with dark art per se, so I started looking it all up, and I thought, I fit quite well into that show, and it was interesting to see what other people were doing, and
Right.
it's quite a nice, vibrant community, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. I'm so glad that I'm glad that you're part of it too, because I think you I don't know, you offer something that's unique, and it's not. I like work that within this community that is, can kind of be looked at either way. Like you're saying, it's like it's not too dark, but it's like it's got enough darkness for people that are into dark art to like, but it's also not so dark that, a normal person can't like it. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how that's kind of how I see it anyway. But I don't know. I just, the whole dark art thing is really just a way for us to try and get some headway and promote ourselves, because it's like, where else? I mean, where would you fit? Where else would you fit? Where would I fit if not in the dark art scene for what I'm doing? It's like, I don't know where I'd even go to,
No. And you do have to kind of think, like when you look at a gallery, you think, well, do I fit there?
Right.
You have to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
You've got to sort of know yourself a little bit. I mean, there's some artists that I look at and I think, they don't quite fit. Like Peter Ferguson, do you know his work? I think his name is
Pete Ferguson.
He goes at Rock LaRue.
No.
Shows up at Rock LaRue. Does really interesting imagery.
Maybe I'll have to look him up.
Yeah. But you just do your innate thing, don't you?
Yeah.
It comes out and
it's
that is whatever.
Yeah, it's like
because you were saying like you felt you were in control, like when you were growing up, when you were younger, that you could escape and be in control of these beasts
right.
that you were in charge of.
Right. Instead of being scared of them, it was like I became their masters.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a cathartic thing for you, really, to unwrap and release. I mean, I've always been pretty optimistic, but I mean, I've had some dark experiences in my life, and I don't know whether that's fed into the work. Like in
I'm
South
optimistic
Africa,
too. I've always been optimistic as well. I'm very I'm an upbeat person,
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to. It's like I don't know. It's like most of from what you've heard, most of the people that are interviewed on the show that do dark work are upbeat. Most of them that have been on here anyway are very upbeat and positive kind of people. So it's another just interesting thing that it doesn't really matter why. It's just. It could be a weird mutation, some genetic mutation in us that we're just attracted to that.
Maybe if they didn't do it, they'd be really messed up.
Yeah, right. It could be that too. But it's just funny. That's really, that thread that's probably the most common thread I think I've had with all these interviews is everyone's pretty nice and kind of positive and upbeat. It's pretty rare to get. I can't think of anybody that's been on that's been like, I don't know, a downer or aggressive or or negative or nihilistic.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
There's kind of a spiritual side in your work as well. I'd say I do have that.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done psychedelics, and that does influence how you think forever.
For sure. Yeah.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
definitely.
I have too many, but the San Pedro experience is the two that I have done. I often reflect on as amazing, fantastic, eye-opening
Right.
experiences.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, and I think that does definitely seep into the work. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like the psychedelic experience has been like it affects my work, or it has affected my work. But it's really been like more of a personal influence, and it affected my work that way. It's not so much like it changed how I see things, or like it didn't give me different ideas to paint, really, like directly. It's more like it changed me and opened my eyes up to a greater spiritual awareness, and ultimately that's going to affect your artwork. Whereas a guy like Alex Gray, he's painting directly the visions he's seen while he was tripping. For me, it hasn't been like, I think if people would think like, oh, he did psychedelics and he paints these weird, crazy monsters, they might think that, that was a result of the monsters, but it's really not. I was doing that stuff before ever since I was a kid, I was doing basically the same kind of stuff, going for really weird, but I think it's just changed my approach to how I think about painting and everything, more like wider,
Yeah, I can see that. But you're not painting trippy scenes.
Right. But they are in a way. They're surreal in a way, in the same way you've got, this kind of surrealism in yours. But it's not like I'm looking at them and in my head and then trying to paint them.
Yeah. The surrealism stems from how you've been seeing the world, then you do a psychedelic and you suddenly see things in a different way.
Right.
And that's the real element. The last one I did was in the Fold Mountains of the Swartberg Range in South Africa. I'd already done one experience at the Africa Burn, which is a bit like the Burning Man Festival, but it's smaller scale. You get about 5,000 people, and it's in what you call the Tankwa, Karoo, which is the desert national park. It's very barren. That was an amazing experience. And then the second time, I went to the mountains with someone that's really dear to me, but he would never want me to say that he was doing it because he would feel a little bit. He didn't want people to know that he did it.
Right.
But we did it together, and got a crack of dawn. Had an ice cold bath in this pool, this stream in the mountains, and at the time I had a cold, and it felt like the cold was in one side of my head, like a bit of congestion. And jumped out of this ice cold pool and felt invigorated, but I could still feel this congestion. And it takes about 40 minutes for it to really kick in, doesn't it? And you kind of think, is it going to work? The doubts creep in a bit, but we're going to see. And I was with this fellow, and he started getting interested in ants. And I thought, well, it's kicking in for him.
Wait.
It hadn't really worked for me. So
say that again? You cut out there for a second. You cut out.
He was getting interested in looking at ants.
Oh, at ants.
On the floor. Right? All of a sudden, they were really fascinating to him. So I thought, okay, I'll leave him and I'll walk off and do my own thing, which still hadn't really kicked in. And I was just feeling this congestion. And I started hearing a grasshopper, right? And I could hear it quite a way up this valley, this green valley that was going up to these mountains. And then slowly I could see three wavelengths, right? This song from the grasshopper, there was three wavelengths. The top one and the bottom one I couldn't understand, but the middle one was a language. And it was tuning in with something in me. And it was guiding me through all these scrubby bushes and over the rocks to somewhere. I don't know why it was taking me there, but I was still aware of this cold. And I kind of went through these bushes, and there was these flowers, big patch of flowers. They looked a bit like chamomile, like large daisies. And the grasshopper was saying, lay in there. So I did. And it was menthol, right? And I inhaled, and it seemed to clear my head in an instant, right? And it was like, wow. So
That's
I stood
amazing.
up, and as I did, this wind came up the valley and lifted all my hair up, and I was like, Jesus or something. And I felt like it'd been cleared out of me, right? So then the wavelength was still going on, and it was guiding me further up further up this narrow ravine. And there was a tree that was very small in size, probably maybe 2 meters high. And it was like a jellyfish in the way it would hang its tendrils down. So its branches touched the ground, and you had to part them to get into the trunk. But I had to be naked to go in there, right? So it was like this, going back to the womb. So I took all my clothes off and I parted these branches and went in. And there was like an altarpiece, a small slab of limestone that was perfect for sitting on. So I sat down, I felt the coolness under my thighs, and placed my hand on the tree trunk. And it was like the body was starting to meld with the tree, so which then took me down through my blood vessels, through the trees, kind of all through the roots into the dark, damp, cooler, wet places that it was in this dry stream bed. And it sort of clicked, right? So I was all connected.
Wow.
And then a little bird came, and the little bird sat about a meter from my face, and it started vibrating in this weird way, like a bee does when it signals to other bees about the waggle dance. And then another bird, and there were 9 birds that came in, and they were all singing and all vibrating like that. As I was connected to this tree, I was laughing.
Shit. It's fucking amazing.
Laughing my head off, but still feeling this deep connection to the earth through the tree and through my feet going into the ground. And it was really, really quite a profound experience.
Yeah.
And then birds left, and that was that. I went back outside into the glaring sun and slowly worked my way down to the bottom of the valley and met up with my friend, and then we shared a campfire and talked about our experience together under the stars, and it was really amazing.
You have an experience like that, and you can't. I mean, you can explain the story, but you can't make someone understand the experience you had. Because I've had stuff like that as well, especially with, I've had kind of a similar experience out in the woods like that, where it was like, follow that bird. The bird takes me to this thing, and it's like, and it's just like when it happens, you're the whole time I was going, this is impossible. But I'm going with it. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way. And it's like, it's happening though. It's physically happening. You can't deny it. And I don't know. I think it, like you said, it changes you. You can't ever go back to seeing reality the same when something like that happens. Whether you
kind of tuned into that deeper resonance of the power of the earth. Or something.
There's something there. You may not become a full blown, religious person or something, but you get a sense that there's just something deeper in everything.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Like there's no question about it. It's not like maybe there's something deeper. It's like there's definitely something deeper, in everything. And it when you have that experience, it, and you can I feel like I can never go back to not thinking that.
No, that's it. It's like the Pandora's box. You can't put it back in. It's you've opened your mind to thinking, haven't you?
Yeah. That's incredible, though. I love hearing those stories. It's the magic, man.
Yeah.
It's the magic.
Yeah, I quite miss all that. Like, since being in Ireland, we haven't really had those kind of experiences connecting to the earth in a big way. I mean, there's a lovely heathland near here. It's only 4 miles away, and it's an old British Army camp. that used to cover a large swathe of land, and then the camps become largely, well, it's more of a UN base now because they have a defence force here. And it's reduced in size, but they've just allowed all the grounds to allow the public, just to wander over it. And it's been nibbled at by sheep. So if you can imagine, it looks like someone's gone over it with a fine lawnmower where you could almost bowl on it. And it's all it is, it's the teeth of the sheep all doing that all day long. And it's lovely. And that's just amazing to imagine that it's kept like it is. You're seeing what it is because of those little teeth all munching away.
That's amazing.
And all these trees, and on there's loads of magic mushrooms growing.
Really?
Loads. The season's just been and gone. So
crazy.
Maybe at some point I'll do one up there.
Yeah, I mean you're in the land of sprites and fairies and leprechauns and all that shit, man. It's like and I'm sure there's plenty to experience in Ireland, man. Very green and lush. And
if you ever make it this way, you're welcome to come and stay.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I would love to, man. I'd love to. Like I said, my wife, it's one of her goals in life is to go to Ireland at some point. So hopefully it'll happen. So thank you. But what's what do you have like an aim or a goal that you're working on with your work? Are you just kind of doing like, painting and whatever you paint, that's what you paint? Or do you see it as part of like a series, or how do you approach that?
Yeah. I tend to just do what I want to do. There's always shows popping up, and then you can kind of fit the piece to a show. Mm-hmm. So I've just done one for Mortal Machine Gallery, Gabriel Schaefer.
Where's that?
Doing a show in December. New Orleans.
Oh, okay.
Mortal Machine.
Yeah, I don't know them.
So I've just had for that. And the premise for that piece goes back 2 years ago, because I was invited to a show in South Africa to do with Bosch coming to Africa.
Bosch that sounds amazing.
And I thought, I was going to travel to Europe. I was going to travel around South Africa over a year and a half. And some big names, and it would have been an amazing show. And then the piece took 2 months to get there. Got there just in time, but the curator became quite sick.
Oh, no.
And the whole thing was shelved. So I got the painting back, and I thought, no, this could work. So it's been in a tube. No one's seen it. It's not been shown. It's been in a tube now for almost 2 years. And then I brought it out, looked at it with fresh eyes. It's always good to do, isn't it? And you see the mistakes and things you're doing engine. And I thought, no, this could work. So as it's in New Orleans, this is like this wayward clog from the Mardi Gras, like one of the floats that's ended up in hell. And
cool.
These little musicians on it as it's drifting through hell. That's been probably 5 or 6 weeks work to finish it.
Right.
And I always thought, well, I don't know where that'll go, but it's to this show. But then I'm working on small aluminium pieces now. I don't know if you've tried aluminium.
Yeah.
As a medium to
That's my favorite thing to paint on now.
Yeah, and it's so subtle, isn't it? Because it's so smooth.
Right, but you can also bake them in the oven. That's what I like, is you could put them in an oven to make your layers dry faster, and it doesn't warp like wood.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool, that sounds like Earth's nightmare.
Yeah. Hey, if it's like a night before, I was just talking about this, if it's a night before a show, and I've got like the way I paint, especially when I'm finishing, is I'll do layers and I need them to dry, and I'll do another layer. It's like a lot of layers, and so it's like I've got it to where I can get the paint to dry in like 30 minutes because if it's thin enough.
Because you use liquid, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. Are you using a medium?
Well, I've always used liquid for the last 20 years, and then I was chatting to a friend recently, and he suggested to try linseed oil.
Have you tried it?
Yeah, so the last piece I did for Copro, that on the couch piece, I used entirely there. I used linseed oil.
How did you like it?
I like it, but you have to subtly shift them because it's a lot more runny.
Right.
It actually bleeds down. If you put too much on, it slides.
Right.
Because it takes 2 days to dry. But what is nice, you work away. I don't paint at night, so as soon as the daylight's gone, that's it. I finish. But sometimes I'm just in the flow.
Right.
I'm really in there, and then the next day I'll come back and I can still work away on it into the wet paint.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
I might try that. And I noticed that the glazes look richer as well.
Oh, really?
Like, you really get like a lovely gloss, a depth to the
colour. Right. It's funny because oh no, I 6 months ago I bought a couple different types of linseed oil because I was going to try that, and I just haven't. I mean, I've tried it a couple times. I've actually done a painting using linseed oil, but it never dried fast enough for me because I'm always rushing. But I'm at a point now where I definitely would. I kind of would prefer to use linseed oil if I could, make it work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm trying back to liquid again on the aluminium. So what I'm doing is I'm putting about 4 or 5 layers randomly on the aluminium. No priming because it's anodized. It's okay anyway. And then I'll.
Oh, no gesso?
No.
Oh, no, cool. Straight aluminum. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And then if you imagine, say, you drip a tiny drop of terps on it, disperses it, and it forms a ridge of paint that would be so minuscule. But what happens when you then come to do your painting and you take the palette knife and you scrape along very gently, like you could do that 20 times. So each time you're taking a tiny, tiny bit of paint off.
Right.
When it hits the ridge, it will expose that. And then you can use like really, really fine sandpaper.
Right.
And just take the glaze down one tone. So you're starting to kind of really get very, very subtle tones in there. And then you can glaze again. And then it's building the layers up, really. So I've got about 4 pieces on the go that just randomly going somewhere, but I don't know where.
That's awesome.
I don't really plan anything anymore. Like all those pieces for Copro, I just went straight in and painted.
Oh wow!
There was no drawings up front.
Oh wow!
And when you work on like a random speckled surface, things get suggested.
Yeah, I love
intuitive.
That. Yeah,
and it's exciting.
It's
because
fun.
It's not like okay, well there's my drawing now. I've got to grid it up and go through the motion of colouring it in.
Right.
It's that you're in that dialogue with the medium, with your heart, with your knowledge you've gained slowly, and it all comes together in this lovely kind of orchestral thing. And it's really nice that, especially sometimes, when you're into music, a certain track comes on that channels through that as well. And it's all like this big dance. And I love painting like that when you're in that zone.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So, they just evolve really.
Right.
And eventually get there. But sometimes they can take too long.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Because commercial angles is not the best. But... So, Chet, do you enjoy doing these then?
What's that?
You enjoy doing these chats?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's weird because I don't feel like I'm well suited to it. Just because I'm not organized and I'm not good at speaking. It's weird. It's really weird. Which is kind of part of the reason.
I'd say contrary to that, it kind of just flows along, doesn't it?
Well, I'm working. I'm working in a format that suits me, I guess, which is I can have a conversation with someone, like a genuine conversation, but like as a professional interviewer, I'm sure I'd be terrible just because I'm not, I'm not quick. I'm not quick with my, I can't speak well. Just like right now, I can't express myself. I've always been that way. And so in a way, I feel like I'm the worst person to be doing this, but I've managed to figure out how to make it work for me, play to my strengths, I guess. But it really is my only social life, really. Like and it's not. I'm not saying that to, have people feel sorry for me because I'm happy that way. It's like I like to be alone, me and my wife. It's great. My life is great, but I do, I do enjoy having some kind of a social life, and it's like I get to talk to all these artists I admire, and it's kind of like it's what regular people have normal social lives and go out and hang out with people, go to dinner and stuff. This is like my version of that. So I satisfy that need to talk to other people, basically. So I do enjoy it. Yeah, it's great. It's amazing. It's just.
Because it is a very solitary pursuit, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm okay with that. I don't mind it.
Yeah. I mean, you have to kind of be okay with it. Otherwise, you just can't be a painter.
Yeah, right.
Because you're on your own a lot, in your own head.
Yep.
And you've got to be comfortable with that.
Right. It's part of the job.
I do miss, like, you didn't go through college, did you?
No. No, that seems like, I wish I had. Nice. Seems like that would have been really fun.
It is. It's fun and it's nice sharing the space with loads of other creatives. And that's why I've loved doing residencies.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really do them now because, Elaine's teaching full time and got 3 kids. But the ones I have done have been incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, I bet.
And so varied, So, the one over on the west coast of Ireland was just this retreat, more so, just in this little stone cottage right on the seafront.
Sounds amazing.
You see every kind of rain in a week.
So cool.
Then there's the German one down in Hohenstein, which was this village of, I think, 58 buildings and a castle in the middle.
Oh, my God.
In part of Bavaria.
Sounds like heaven.
Bavaria. Yeah, and you're surrounded by miles and miles of beech trees that were going through the various chains of colour through the seasons, and it was like magic there. I walked over 300 kilometres while I was there, just through these forest trails.
Wow! And
then in the evening, you'd sit around a dinner table and you'd share dinner and wine with your hosts and the other artists, and it was lovely.
Right?
You're really tapping into things that feel rewarding. And,
right.
I kind of miss that, when you're just in your studio on your own. It would be nice to do more of them in an ideal world.
Yeah, that's before it was, for me, it was the art shows were my social life, really. Once I got out of effects, when I was in the effects business, that was my social circle. It's like those are the people I knew, I was friends with and I hung out with. And then when I got out of that, I kind of left that all behind, and I sort of made a whole bunch of new friends in this in the art scene from going to art shows, and I just kind of stopped going as much before COVID. Really, I would still go to openings that I was in and stuff, but I used to go to all the art shows, and I don't know. My default position is being alone in the studio, and I'm really comfortable with it. I don't know. My mom was the same way. She used to tell me she was like very comfortable being alone and but it's like, it's sort of like the podcast is good for me because if I was left to my own devices, I would probably, just cut off just because that's my tendency, you know. So it like keeps me social, and you know, keeps me keeps me alive in a social sense, you know. And it feels good to talk
Yeah,
to
I mean,
other
with
artists.
COVID, it's really just a sin, isn't it? And a lot of those shows have just moved online.
Right.
I don't know when it's going to change, but hopefully it will at some point.
Yeah, it's going to be a while, though. I don't know if it's ever going to go fully back to what it was, though. I can't imagine people ever shaking hands again. I bet you people will just not be shaking hands. I don't know. We'll see after there's a vaccine. It might be all good. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, here it's cases are coming down, but largely people are following the rules.
Yeah, well, we're having our biggest days of it, and it's going to get worse, they're saying. So I'm staying in.
You could kind of see that's the way it would have gone.
I know.
All these rallies going on, people out protesting, and
it was crazy. Yeah, I know. I just saw. They were showing pictures of like people celebrating in the streets because of the Biden win, and everyone had masks on. And then they showed people protesting, the Trump people, all pissed off. None of them had masks. They're right next to each other. There was a huge crowd of people. I'm like, it's so weird.
So there'll be
weird.
A mass culling of Republicans soon then.
Yeah, I know. The problem is they spread them to other people, though. That's the problem. It's like they spread it all around to everybody else. So it's like, you know, okay, I'm going to do my part. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to stay in my studio, get my shit done.
Yeah. So we're quite used to it.
Yeah, we're you know, I've been saying all along we're kind of built for it, really. You know, I started doing live streaming on my Patreon too, painting live stream, which has become kind of a social thing as well because I'm talking to people and they're watching me paint. And so it's you know, it's been bad in a lot of ways, but it's also opened up new avenues.
Do you feel comfortable doing that? Do you paint naturally with an audience watching?
You know what? I actually now I do because I used to do live painting events just back when I was trying to establish myself. So, you know, there'd be these art party shows. One of them was an Alex Gray benefit for COSM, you know, their art church thing. And,
right.
And so you know, after you do it, it's uncomfortable at first when people are watching you, or I found it very uncomfortable, but I just would kind of get in the zone and, just kind of got over it eventually after I did it enough times. And now I feel, I don't know, confident enough to pull it off. I know that I can pull it together, even if it looks like shit, you know, while people are watching.
Do you have quite a formula then? So are your demonstrations always kind of going through that process?
Well, you know, I haven't done I've been doing these live streams to test out my setup. So I just, you know, kind of put a canvas up or a panel up and just started painting a character. And I'm trying to loosen up. I'm trying to paint more like, you know, you do and like Dos Diablos does. The people that have been inspiring me lately, I'm trying to get back to that because I used to paint like that to where it's just like I'm going to kind of let it develop as it goes because I got really into planning things out and being efficient and trying to do it, you know, and I got good at that. And so now it's like, okay, I'm satisfied. I got to that point. Now I'm going to go back to sort of my roots and loosen up. And so I haven't done any planned out step by steps yet, but I'm going to. My next thing I'm going to stream is going to be like an alla prima demo, because some people were asking about that on the Patreon. So I'm going to do that for like my monthly tutorial.
I mean, do you find, like I find sometimes things will just, the magic flies and it really works. There's other times where you can be battling for ages.
Oh, it's terrible.
And if you've got an audience watching it,
I know.
It's just not happening.
That's, you know what though, this one that I'm painting now, it kind of like last night I just live streamed it, and it kind of finally started settling into like, okay, this is something I'm feeling good about. But it started off completely different, and I went through like a couple different versions of it. So I didn't feel that uncomfortable about it. I was telling people, paintings always look like shit at some point. If you just have to get used to it. It's hard to stop a painting when it looks bad. Sometimes you have to stop though, and it's going to look good, and when it gets over to here, but you have to stop for the day for whatever reason. It's so unsatisfying to leave a painting that looks ugly or looks bad. You know what I mean?
I know, yeah. And it is a very intriguing thing to do that, because no one painting is the same as the next.
Right.
So the process of creating it is as well, because I found sometimes, when you're working on a large piece, this bit really might work well.
Right.
And then this bit might work well, but you've got to tie it together.
Yeah, right.
And then you can get that whole precious thing going. You can, I've spent 15 hours.
Right.
I don't want to fuck it up.
Yeah.
And then something shifts in your whole thing, and then it gets clunky and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then you go through that, and then you just sort of think, actually, bollocks to this. I'm just going to go and do something. And you do something quite radical.
Right.
Like I did this painting called Two Friends, and it's working on this character where he's got like a mask of skin on his face already. And then through these circles here, which are two different sizes, you can see sort of like teddy bear eyes underneath.
Oh, cool.
So, but his nose and his mouth are part of the skin mask.
Uh-huh.
And then on his shoulder, he's got this yellow canary that's larger than life, stylized, singing its heart out. So the idea was that people often judge on your appearance. Animals don't.
Right.
They just get that sense that you're a decent sort of person,
Right.
or there's a good vibe about you. And so the birds landed on his freakish thing's shoulder and singing away. And in so doing, it's released something in the character, and this like blue light is shooting up out the side of his head.
Oh, cool.
And a crack of a smile just sort of appearing.
That's great.
But that blue was done in two big vigorous marks, brush. And it was put over some work on the face that I've been working on for like 20 hours.
Right.
So like,
it's hard to do.
One go at this.
It's hard to do.
Yeah.
Like I said, though, you're a brave guy. Like I said before, you're brave. So that brings up an interesting point. How do you approach the meaning of your work? Are you intentionally coming up with an idea and trying to express it, or is it like you kind of discover the meaning as you go along, or is it both?
It depends, really. I used to do very, very layered storylines with subplots appearing. I did one, and I had this yellow cabinet in the middle of the painting. It was quite a large piece, 1.40 meters. And this one character had that shirt, ce n'est pas un pipe, the pipe. So it was relating to this forest fire we got caught in America. And on the table, there was a lute that was burning, and loot as in money. So that related to another painting that I'd done called The Loot is on the Table, and it was playing with that. And then bringing it back, the guy wearing Cinnapar Peep, that was the fire, but the trousers that he was wearing were these tartan trousers. So when we got caught up in the forest fire, all our clothes were burnt, and we had to get kitted out in a charity shop in a place called Seaside.
Wow.
Near Carmel.
Wow.
And it was near a golf resort. So they had loads of golf clothes. And I looked like a 1970s golfer because I had these big flares, corduroy jacket, and these big tartan flares.
Oh my God.
And those were my clothes I had to live in for a week. So that proves that guy has got those tartan trousers on. So there's that relation to my life.
Right.
But then bigger plot about religion. And there was this idol at the top with this stairway going all the way up. And it was shaped like Y. So it was like a crucifixion, but it was Y.
Mm-hmm.
And no one was going up the stairs. They were all just hanging around below. So like a sort of suggestion of, those sorts of things, that people aren't following religion anymore.
Right.
So there are about 5 or 6 subplots within that piece. And then sometimes it can be you're exploring just more about texture.
Right.
Or more of a spiritual feeling. I've often had little birds appear in my work. Things being held, like love. And that sort of often a freakish beast with something that it's caring for.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes back to that judgment of appearance, I suppose, again, and that sense of a deeper kind of thing inside.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, for this for this painting you talked about with your flares and all that, was that the idea when you started it, or did you just kind of start painting and then it just turned into that?
It turned into that, yeah.
Okay.
So I put a random loads of blobs and inky random shapes, and then that started to form the guy's hair, and then I manipulated that and changed it into a face, and then elongated the body, and then it started to build. And I think, well, that's really dark black. It'd go really nice with a very striking yellow. So what would fit there in that sort of shape? And then you start to build it. It's like a storyline that evolves as you go along.
That's so cool.
I mean, with the On the Couch pieces, there's always going to be the couch. And I've done 7 of them, 7 paintings. And then what characters go in, that evolves through that dialogue thing we're talking about.
Right.
Surface and the colour.
So it's kind of like it's a way of, well, the way I view it too is with my own work is that it's like it's a way of talking to yourself, speaking to your subconscious, or letting your subconscious say the thing, whatever is in there, and you're kind of organizing it in some way.
Yeah. It's like starting with random chaos and then slowly honing things and shaping, but still allowing that when it gets overworked, it's like a manicured garden. It doesn't quite work for me. I like a bit of, I like a loose mark, and I like a scruffy bit there,
right?
Because that's like real life, doesn't always look finished.
No, I love that too.
I mean, I admire the skill of someone that can paint like a photograph. But it's more to me like a meditation I can imagine they go through as they're doing it. The end result doesn't really appeal to me.
Right.
I'd rather see a bit more expression and that sort of thing.
Yeah. I had a weird thought about painting the other day, and I haven't thought much about it, so I might be full of shit. But what I was thinking, paintings are like, the actual paintings, when you're done, are like corpses, and they're alive when they're being painted. The life of the painting is the painting process. And it's like, they're like corpses of you creating an idea. So it doesn't mean anything, but it was just an interesting way of looking at painting that I never thought of as like these artifacts. They're like, and it's not that they're dead necessarily, but they are kind of like, to me, the life in the painting is when it's happening. That's what it's all about for me. It's the painting part, and it's when it's done. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's for someone who that's a collector to have, but I'm not I'm not that interested in it when it's done. It's like I'd rather someone who enjoys it can enjoy it because I'm enjoying the painting part.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember you saying that. And at the time when you said it, I thought, no, that's not quite the way I feel personally. Because
I know a lot of artists who don't feel that way.
You're in this dialogue with your subconscious thing. So you're a bit like a pictorial diary that's being dragged up from your deeper self. And it's recorded. And when I look back at certain paintings, I remember the feelings when I did that painting and things that were pertinent to that time. So it's kind of nice. There's a familiarity by having you work around. And when you're gone, it's sort of like if have you been in that position where you've been preparing for a solo and it's all building around you and it's comforting. And then when it's gone and it's bare and you walk in the next day, you kind of feel a bit bewildered. Like, what am I going to do? Do I have to build it all up again?
Right.
And then it does.
That's
like fires just through the landscape. And then those little seedlings.
That's the fun again. To me. That's the part that's the most fun is like is the blank canvas and having like, what's it going to be? What am I going to do? That's the fun part for me. It's like, I love to paint so much that, I mean, of course I like my paintings. I paint them to be something I would like to look at, so I love them. I'm a fan of my own paintings, I think, because like I said, I'm trying to make something I think would be really cool. And, but I don't have that attachment to where it's like, I have to hold. There's been a couple maybe that actually it's funny. Now I'm trying to hold on to pieces a little bit more now because I've sold everything that I've done for the most part. So I don't have anything, but it's more like I got to hold on to a few of these. So I pick a few of my favorites and I've been trying to hold on to them. But it's not, I don't spend a lot of time looking at them. It's for me, it's just like, I want to paint. I'm just dying. I'm always want to paint.
Well then, how about this then? Because you enjoy the painting process, but the end result is an image.
Right.
So sometimes you're falling more in love with the image, but sometimes you're falling more in love with the way it's painted.
Right.
The image isn't so much a thing. Like sometimes you kind of think, oh, how did I get that mark?
Mm-hmm.
Something about that energy, like you capture an arm and it just works. Whereas an image, it's something removed.
Right.
Sometimes you just come up with an image and you think, yeah, that really worked. Its harmonies are all there, the balance, it's set. And when it sells, you do feel a bit disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, I find that most...
And there's other people...
I find that I think most artists are... I think it's more unusual that I have that attitude about it because I think most artists are more attached to the work, which I totally get, It's like your kids, I get it. You made this thing. I just feel like I've just always felt like, it's... if I can keep selling them, I could paint another one, and I just want to paint another one more than anything, is to do something new because it's just so it's like a game, it's like a puzzle game to me. It's like it's a challenging puzzle game, and you are trying to make this thing work, and you start with nothing, and it's all about figuring out how can I make this work, and then when you make it work, and the magic thing happens. Where you get the inspiration finally and it makes everything come together. It's just so satisfying. It's so fun. So it's like, I feel like I'm just constantly playing this puzzle game.
Creating corpses.
Yeah. Creating beautiful corpses for people to enjoy, for people who like to collect beautiful corpses.
Do you feel that same way with your sculpting?
Yeah. I really do. Yeah. Well, I'm used to that with the sculpture because when you sculpt something and mold it, it's destroyed. The sculpture's just the clay is destroyed. So usually in the molding process, and then you do casts, and then you're kind of like selling the casts or painting the casts and selling them. So I mean that's how effects was all. Everything gets molded and your sculpture gets trashed, and that's part of the process. So I probably even feel less attached to the sculptures because I'm so used to them being destroyed. But it's all about the it's all about just the making. I just love making art so much that I just want to get on to the next one.
Does the creativity run into other things like cooking or gardening or anything like that?
I mean, music is my other thing, probably. I get that's it's sort of because what I wanted to do when I was younger, when I was a teenager, and could never. I was in some good bands, but we were never able to kind of hit, and so I feel like music's my hobby now, and it's weird. It's for the last 5 years or so, maybe. Like I cut off playing music. I stopped when the last band I was in broke up. It was so disheartening because I was putting all my energy into that. I hadn't even started painting yet. And when it quit, I was just like, okay, I'm totally stepping away from music. I'm not going to play for a while. I can't deal with it. And then like I think it's about 5 years ago, 2015, maybe a little longer. I started playing the guitar again, and I bought a bass and started playing bass. And I like playing bass more than guitar at this point. And it's like I've got hundreds of riffs on my phone from just sitting there watching TV at night when I'm done painting. I come up with these song ideas, just these little riffs, and it's like, oh, that would make a cool song, because I was really into songwriting more than performing or anything. So I record them on my iPhone, just with no amp or anything, just this electric bass, just where you can kind of barely hear it. And so I have this dream that one day I'm going to, record all this stuff, because I can do it now. Like the song intro to the podcast is one of those songs that I just came up with riffs. So I seriously have hundreds of them now. And the thought of sitting down with my recording software and writing like an album's worth of music sounds like the most fun thing to me. It's like I would be so excited to be able to do that. But I've got this book I got to get done. I got commissions I got to get done. So one of these days, maybe when I'm old and
how's the book coming along?
It's further along than it's ever been. I'm at a point now where the graphic designer is like, hey, why don't you, let's do, we're kind of deciding on this look of it. She's laying things out, looks amazing. And we're just deciding on, like I'm going to do pen and ink renderings of some of these different types of characters, because I really want to go for that old science manual, turn of the century field guide mixed with, an art book, but it's also kind of like a field guide with all like the little figure A, and cursive, maybe italicized and stuff, little arrows pointing and stuff like that. So now I got to do like a lineup of all the different types of characters, like a police lineup. And I think I'm going to do those in pen and ink, So she's got pretty much all the paintings, and I'm just filling in pieces like that, some drawings and stuff like that. So I'm still hoping I'm going to be done this year. That's the goal, but it's like only 2 months left in the year. But
yeah, it's been an ongoing project, isn't it?
Oh my God.
Because you say like you create these paintings and they're like corpses, but the characters you do crop up again and again, and they have to they're fitting into your world, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I was saying like the paintings themselves are almost like corpses of, if you look at the painting, the life of a painting, in this dumb theory I had, the life is when it's blank canvas, it's a being born, and then you're birthing it, and the entire
You're
life.
God for a while.
Yes, and the life of the painting happens until the painting process stops, and then it's dead, and then you have a corpse. That was kind of the idea. But I feel like on another level, the characters are, once you create them and bring them into reality, they're kind of alive. At least in my imagination. So it's a weird thing. It doesn't make sense really, but I thought it was an interesting thought. So I've got a lot of characters that keep coming around.
And still more in the head have to come out.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Alex Gray giving me a great quote for the documentary when he got interviewed. I gotta remember it because I always butcher it, but he was saying about my paintings, which is so amazing for me because he's such a hero of mine. He said it's like these. What did he say? It's like these beings need to be seen now, and so it's it's almost like they're alive in some other level, and they need humanity to see them now, so they're making me paint them. It was kind of the gist of it. He said it, of course, a lot more eloquently than me, because like I told you, I can't speak for shit. That's why I paint, because I can't speak well, or it's like if I'd probably be a public speaker otherwise.
Well, that's the thing. If you spend so much time on your own, just using pictures as your language, then your vocabulary is going to go down, isn't it? I found, having travelled a lot in third world countries, where you've got to simplify your language so often, you then start, like, you can have 5 words pop up in your head to explain the same thing.
Right.
And then it just becomes confusion, and you don't quite say what you want to say because you're thinking, am I simplifying it so this guy who doesn't know much English can understand? And then it starts to impact on your life and everyday life when you're back in the lights of Ireland,
I feel like it's like a brain thing for me, though. Like I've always been that way. It's like some kind of... I mean, I remember because I've always been a really a voracious reader. I love to read, so I've got a good vocabulary. It's just expressing myself verbally is the problem. And, when I'm doing it here on the podcast, I am stretching myself to the bounds of how well I can speak. It's like, it's a chore. It's like, I'm really trying. And it's this weird kind of like balancing act of letting go and just having a conversation, because when I'm not, I think it has something to do with some kind of being self-conscious maybe, because, I'm speaking to you now and I'm pretty, somewhat fluid with my verbiage, but it's like I feel like I'm trying, and trying is for me is like letting go and just kind of having a natural conversation and not thinking about it too much. But I remember being like in a crib, maybe like 3 years old, or maybe not in a crib, but 3 or 4 years old, and having these kind of complex thoughts and feeling angry and frustrated that I couldn't express them, through speaking. And so it feels like it's always been that way for me. It's just I'm not naturally gifted in that way. Some people just can talk like it's nothing. Like Mike Carell, the guy who I started the podcast with. That dude can fucking go on, and he's just fluid and easy for him. And it's like I'm just not that way. I try.
I've noticed he does it well.
Yeah, I envy that. I envy people being able to speak that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think prior to coming on here, I was thinking, what do I know what to talk about? And it's just got to flow, really. And it's settling through all those relaxed conversations.
Yeah.
And then you're suddenly aware that, this is a podcast rather than a chat.
Right. Yeah.
This is being recorded. This can go out. And you think there's so many things that you could talk about, but you can't cram it all into a couple of hours.
Exactly.
And it might not have any real relevance. but until you've got another thing to link it to that, and then it kind of has relevance. So really, it's just go with the flow.
Yeah, I just, if nothing else, I try and kind of steer it somewhat and keep it on the art and what I think people are interested in, even if it's not about the art. I'm always thinking, is the audience going to be interested in what we're talking about right now? And so I try and just steer it to some degree.
Yeah.
But everything we've been talking about I thought was very interesting. So I didn't do much steering.
Yeah. The thing with dark art, I mean, I broached this as a question to you once, that there's a lot of cliche imagery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of skulls, to the point where it just becomes a bit too much. I mean, a skull's a great thing to draw, it's fascinating, but to really tap into that sort of more unusual angle of what dark art has to offer. It is filled with a lot of cliche imagery. A bit like pop surrealism has a lot of cliche imagery too.
Yeah.
The pretty girl in fantasy land with big eyes, and you start to kind of identify straight away, okay, that's that and that's that. But it's nice when you've got a bit more to it than that.
Yeah. Well, that's, also part of the reason for taking the name dark art that everybody was using anyway, just settle on it. It's fine. Let's try and coalesce around this, just so we are giving ourselves, a bit of some footing, a way to, coalesce around something, promote ourselves, promote the idea that if it's dark, it's not evil, blah, 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 the usual, because that's a cliche for people that aren't into it, that it's bad or satanic or some stupid bullshit. But, I'm always pushing. I think that one of the things I feel like, whether it's true or not, I feel like I have this obligation, just because I'm probably talking about it publicly more than most people. I feel like I need to encourage other dark artists to really reach down deep and explore the idea in new ways, instead of just relying on cliches and stuff. I think that's important. This is a great example of why you're a great guest for the podcast, because I feel like you're really doing that with your work. It's like, it's deep and it's personal and mysterious, but it also falls in that dark area because it's generally got a dark vibe to it. But that doesn't, that's not an insult. That's from where I'm coming from, that's a compliment, because that's what I like. It's like my favorite dark artists are Beksinski and Giger. And it's like, those guys created their own vocabulary. They were not ripping other people off, and developed their own thing, like a totally way out there, crazy, amazing, unique style. And I think it's not, dark art is not like a limit. It's more like a starting point that really can be, it can be very deeply explored and expressed, and a great vehicle for creating new, unusual, and exciting work. You know what I mean? That's how I view it anyway. It's like a good starting point, as long as we don't get hung up on the cliches and we actually use it for deep personal exploration.
Because I was thinking the other movements, in the past, Impressionism, Fauvism, whatever it is, they don't necessarily have a subject that they're moving on.
Yeah, that's true.
Anything. Whereas dark arts kind of wraps around a subject, isn't it? And I was trying to think what else would be the equivalent, where there is a core subject, and I couldn't really think of anything. Maybe the Romantics, sort of, but there's still a whole range of things that they cover.
Right.
And then we've got film as well now, so that's thing that the Impressionists didn't have back then, so.
Right. But the surrealists did.
Yeah.
You know?
But the surrealists still would tackle all sorts of things, wouldn't they?
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I kind of feel that way about. I think the potential for that is within that dark art realm. You know, to do all that. Music. Music is kind of falls under that as well, and film. On the you could say that on the less deep end of things in dark art, you've got horror movies, and then on the deep end of the good shit, you've got David Lynch, which is kind of dark surrealism. I mean, dark surrealism might be a better term, but dark art is already kind of there, and it doesn't, like I always say, it's like the person makes the name cool. It's not like the name makes the person cool. It's like, like.
Yeah, I think it's just a convenient label. It works, and you know what you're getting. If you say, it's a dark art show, you know what you're going to be seeing.
Exactly.
There.
People know what you're talking about, and you're not struggling with how to explain it to somebody, basically. It's just, it's a convenient thing. And it's also like, do artists really need another blockade, something to stop that? It's hard enough to be an artist to we need to clear out any extraneous bullshit. Like, what's the best name we could have for our movement or anything like that? It's like, anything that's going to help make things easier is going to benefit everybody, I think.
But do you ever feel this like I find I'd like to explore color more, but it's a bit scary. I look at other imagery that I see on like great artists' work, and I think, wow, look at the colors in that. And they really captured that. I'd like to draw a palette like that. And then inevitably, I end up coming back to my earth tones.
I know.
It just keeps going. So I kind of think, well, is that me? Because I'm more into the organic subjects, and I'm not into technology. I'd never use a vivid pink or purple.
Right,
really,
I know.
But I'd like to try it, And a good punchy colour sometimes really does set off the darker tones.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And sometimes you're thinking, I'd like to do this now because there's been enough darkness in the world.
Right.
All this COVID shit. I want to free up. Be happy.
Yeah.
Do something more awful. But inevitably you come back to doing what you do again.
Yeah, I'm the same way, man. I'm earth tones and grays. I'm like grays. I like gray. All my colors are like basically shades of gray, Everything's mixed down. And I always come back to it, and it's kind of what I love to look at, and I appreciate people. There's people in the dark art scene, like Ryan Case that's doing these crazy color stuff, and it's cool. I just I like the range. I like that. I just think everyone ultimately, more than trying to fit into this movement, the artist's primary goal should be, the most pure self-expression as possible, and if you start painting stuff outside of the realm, then that's cool too. Cause I don't know. It seems like, that's one thing. It's like, I don't want it to be, I don't know. I don't want the outsider image of dark artists to become like a chip on our shoulder and like, fuck everybody, fuck the normal artists, because the normal artists are amazing. It's like you can only learn from them, and you just benefit from putting that into your repertoire and having an appreciation for all of that stuff.
Yeah, and I've seen that in the Dark Art Society. There's a great reverence to the old masters and those who have come before the craft.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, we have to. I do. I often look at the old masters and amazed at what they could do back then.
I know, without toilet paper. Without electric lights, without tubes of paint.
Yeah, like
with scurvy and scabies.
Scabies, yeah.
All kinds of diseases. They were doing this amazing shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, what Egon Schiele died of Spanish flu, didn't he?
Who did?
And Klimt. So. Egon Schiele,
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
yeah. And
Wow.
I think Klimt did as well.
Oh, weird.
And when the lurgies going out there and wars coming. But yeah, like, would you ever take it back as far as grinding your own pigments? Like in the old...
Yeah, I mean, that would be fun. I just can't. It's like such a different. You know, you got to think those dudes back then. If they didn't have to, they probably wouldn't be doing it. You know, if they had tubes,
Yeah, but
they would.
thing, because I was chatting with Alessandro, it's that Italian painter, the surreal kind of Boschish type.
Mm-hmm.
Old heads, you know, the peaceful kind of spiritual dark side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Chatting to him the other day because he's grinding his own pigments, so he's bought the powders from a supplier in Italy, and now he's grinding them with his peso on glass, and he says you get such vivid colour.
Ah, interesting.
And then the process of it, you know, it must be quite rewarding.
There is something to be said about stretching, you know, starting with these raw materials and stretching your own canvas and making your own pigment. And, you know, it's just like when I first started sculpting, my first sculpture, I sculpted it, I molded it, I cast it up, I got rid of the seam. There's like a line down the side, you know, carefully. I did the whole process, and it definitely, you know, imbues it with an energy that that it's you all the way. But I don't know. I feel like that's kind of like, it's one of the things you have to give up in order to maybe survive. That's the way I feel. Like I don't know that I have time to. Time is such a short thing for me already that I just adding another step is like, you know, if I had that luxury, I would love it. But you know, you can get those Rublev colors. Those are that company Rublev.
Well, that's what I was looking at next. But I mean, one of those tubes, a lead white, is very expensive.
It's expensive. I just bought some. Yeah,
okay.
They're really
I've not
great.
tried lead white yet.
Yeah, I just bought like a few colors because I was like, I got to try these out. They have no binder, or almost every paint on the market, at least they say, has a small amount of a binder in it, which I'm not even really sure what that means. Maybe binding, maybe so the oil and the pigment mix together well or something. I don't know, but they're just linseed oil and pigment. So that's, if you were to make them yourself, aside from being able to make these custom colors, that's kind of what that stuff is, you know?
And have you tried them yet?
Yeah. Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
They're great. I haven't, I just bought some, and this painting that I've been live streaming, I've been using some of those paints, and it wasn't like a game changer. I mean, they're great, but I'm not super picky when it comes to that stuff. When it comes to, you know, because I'm painting, so I'm mixing so much myself, and I'm painting with this mud palette, so everything's mixed down. So
yeah. But there's certain colours, like there's one I've got here. It's a lemon yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at this lemon yellow compared to other lemon yellows, it's so vivid. I can't find it now. It's Michael Harding. Harding?
Yeah, those are great.
He makes really nice paint as well. But I've been trying to get lead white, but you have to be a restorer. Like there's EU regulations, you can't just get it sent over. Yeah, and then you have to fill out a big form, and it's quite complicated to get.
Oh, wow.
The Rublev ones, they didn't have that form on the website, so maybe I'll try them.
Huh. Yeah, it's funny because I got some lead white because, of course, in America, you can get lead white because it's the land of the free market, and you could kind of buy anything. Although they give you a warning label in California. But I got lead white, and to be honest, I like it. I like it better, a little bit better than titanium white, regular titanium. But I am so paranoid of the lead, and I hate using gloves, that I haven't really used it. I used it a little bit, and it's like it's nice, but it's not so amazing that I'm going to put gloves on to use it, or that I'm going to use it and just not worry about it with my grandkids running around the room and everything. You know?
I've heard it's more if you sand it. Then
Yeah,
you
yeah.
inhale it.
Probably.
Sometimes I do.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the dust would be bad, but I think, if you if you ate it or it got in your lips, and, I smoke, and it's like, get it on your cigarette and put it in your mouth. So I do have it. It's great, but it's not that great. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm going to always use this. It's great, but it's like, it doesn't really affect, I don't feel like it changes my paintings or the look. It's just like that, Marager medium? Have you ever used Marager medium? It's like this old masters medium that this company called Old Masters, I think it's called oldmasters.com or Old Masters Paints or something. They're the only place I know of that makes this Marager medium, which is this traditional oil painting medium made with lead, and it's super toxic, right? But it's the most amazing medium. It's like, have you ever used Galkid gel? Have you ever used Galkid gel?
A similar thing. Yeah.
It's okay.
Kind of in pasta, is it?
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but it's totally different than anything I've ever used, right? It's weird. It's like, it's a gel, but it's kind of fluffy in a weird way. It's really unusual, and it feels amazing. It's like, it's a great, amazing medium, right? But they use turpentine, and I cannot take the fumes, man. It's like, it stunk my whole room up. So I don't use it, I would like to, but it's too nasty and toxic, and it doesn't really make that much of a difference with my paintings, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lid on my, like this thing here, the sealed.
Yeah.
The terps are in there, and it's okay.
Do you use turpentine or like an odorless?
That's turpentine.
Oh, you use real turpentine.
Yeah, but with the lid on, there's no smell in here.
Right.
And then, when I'm using the linseed oil, you don't really mix the terps in too much. So there's a little dog.
What's that?
My daughter.
Hello.
My little dog.
What a cute pup.
They're off to bed.
Oh.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello. Have a nice sleep.
Right. Cheers, Dan.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
I'm going to come up and say hello to Chet.
That's awesome. You have
I've heard a lot about him.
Oh.
And I listen to the podcast with my dad.
Yeah.
So.
What an amazing family you have. I love it.
Yeah. Well, they're off to bed now. So.
Well, good night, everybody. If you can hear me, good night.
Good night, Del.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different mediums and poppy and stand oil, and I think, how does it really change and impact? I'd like to know more about it, but it's like this, where you see the wood through the trees kind of thing.
Right.
It's good to have a friend that knows that technical knowledge so they can pass it on.
Right.
Share it.
It's good to have. Yeah, it's good. It's good to have a friend who knows all that shit, so I don't have to. I'll just ask my friend. There's this guy on Facebook. Let me look real quick. I gotta let you go soon. We're at like 2.5 hours. It's crazy.
Really?
Yeah. I don't want to abuse you.
Yeah. This will become too boring.
No. This is great. What is this guy? Hold on. What's this guy's name? Virgil. Fuck. I forget it. Traditional. Hold on. I gotta look it up. He's got a painting group in Facebook, and he is kind of the traditional oil painting, I believe it's called. Let's see. Yeah, you should check it out. Oh no, that's not it. Wait a minute. Yeah, Virgil Elliott, traditional oil painting. He's got a group called Traditional Oil Painting, and it's got 18,000 members, but his name's Virgil Elliott, and he's one of these purist guys, right? He's like super anal, super purist. You know, fat over lean, no modern resins, mediums, either straight oil. He's like very, very, and the only paints he recommends other than making yourself are the Rublev paints. Those are the only ones he recommends. And he's very like, you know, it's good to have a person like that. He seems kind of like a little uptight maybe, but it's good to have a person like that really takes that stuff seriously. So he's like, he will not entertain any idea of a liquid or anything, because it's like it's gonna yellow over time and this and that, and it's like so you should. It's good. It's a good group to join. Traditional Oil Painting on Facebook.
Yeah, well, I'll write that down. Igor's really good at his knowledge. You know, Igor that's been in the Copro shows as well.
Oh yeah, really? I guess it kind of shows.
Yeah, he's got knowledge about various mediums.
That's cool.
So we've had quite technical chats. But yeah, cool, mate. I better go then.
Yeah. I didn't realize it was so long. I really got lost track of time. That's the sign of a good conversation. So I think people will enjoy it.
It's been nice.
It's
I appreciate it. Great
meeting you and great talking to you. Super fun. Really enjoyed it. And again, I'm a huge fan, and I hope that you'll get more exposure from this podcast, because your stuff is amazing and awesome. So keep doing what you're doing. Like I said, I feel like you're definitely adding to this movement. You're adding something to this movement. So I think that's great.
It's nice to be in. It's nice to be in it, and thanks for everything, Chet. You know, for what you're doing for the movement.
Oh yeah,
I think you're a great leader at the helm.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It seems like, what else am I going to do? What else am I going to do with my life? All right. Well, thanks for coming on, and thank you everybody for listening, and we appreciate you out there listening. And let's say goodbye to the audience. Goodbye, audience.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Goodbye.